Officer's daughter in critical condition, panic moments during the doctor's exam at midnight. The neon lights flickered ominously in the cold, dark night as Officer Jim Carter paced the hospital hallway. Sweat clung to his brow, each heartbeat echoing louder than the pounding feet racing past. His daughter, Emily, just 13 and full of life, lay somewhere behind those sterile white doors, fighting for her life. Panic clawed at him, a wild beast he couldn't contain. What had happened? One moment she was laughing, and in the blink of an eye, everything shattered. It was nearly midnight, and the air was thick with anxiety, like a storm waiting to break. As he stood there, a nurse rushed by, her expression grave. Jim's stomach twisted in knots. She barely glanced at him, but the look in her eyes told him more than words could. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed like angry bees while the sporadic beeping of monitors provided a haunting soundtrack to his torment. It felt as though time had lost its meaning, seconds stretched into agonizing minutes. The eerie stillness of the hospital contrasted sharply with the chaos inside Jim's heart. Then, a familiar voice broke the tension. "Officer Carter." It was Dr. Mitchell, the emergency room chief. His face was drawn, shadowed by fatigue yet determined, like he had just stepped out of a battle. "We need to talk. It's complicated what we're facing here." The weight of his words was a heavy shroud that settled over Jim's shoulders. A lump formed in his throat. Emily was in critical condition, but why? What had caused this sudden descent into darkness? Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed other families gathered, their faces a mix of worry and dread. A mother clutched her child, whispering comforts that rang hollow in the oppressive air, while another father sat, head in hands, as if the world had crumbled around him. Each story echoed Jim's fracture, thoughts swirling like a storm. Was it an accident? A sickness? He felt the cold grip of terror tighten around him. The flashing blue lights from outside seeped through the windows, casting strange shadows that danced and flickered like taunting spirits. He couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond the glow. Emily's laughter echoed in his mind, a bittersweet melody that threatened to shatter him completely. What had happened to his little girl? The room seemed to constrict, and he took a deep breath, searching for strength amidst the turmoil. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A sudden crash broke through the tension like glass shattering, causing everyone to jump. Was that an announcement or a warning? Jim's heart raced, each beat clamoring louder in his chest. Dr. Mitchell, eyes wide, moved away from him, clutching a file tightly. "Stay here," he said, urgency filling his voice. Panic flooded Jim's senses. He clenched his fists, feeling crushed between the fear for his daughter and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The hospital's walls felt like they were closing in, and he found himself stepping closer to the doors, drawn to the unknown like a moth to flame. Would he find answers or only more questions? Whether he was prepared or not, a storm was coming, and Jim knew that the fight for Emily's life had just begun. Dr. Mitchell's voice faded into the background as Jim's mind swirled. The detective's instincts, honed after years on the force, screamed at him that something was terribly wrong. His daughter was lying somewhere in that hospital, and the chaos outside seeped into his gut like poison. He vaulted towards the doors, taking the corridor in desperate strides. "Sir! Wait!" An unfamiliar voice called from behind him, but Jim ignored it. Roaring adrenaline pushed him forward. He flung the door open, the harsh fluorescent lights inside the treatment area flickering like a warning. The sight that met him sent his heart plummeting. Multiple medical personnel moved with urgent precision around a small hospital bed, Emily's pale form barely visible beneath the stark white sheets. "Emily!" he shouted, panic lacing his voice. As the chaos around him dulled to a distant hum, he focused on the scene unfolding in front of him. Dr. Mitchell was barking orders, hands flying as he directed the team. A nurse was pumping a bag with 4 fluids, while another monitored the heart rate. Each beeping monitor hammered his heart as if it were a countdown clock, marking the last precious moments he had with his daughter. "Get him out!" someone yelled. The hazy atmosphere snapped back, and Jim found himself pulled from the room, an invisible hand pushing him back. "Let me see her. I'm her father," he bellowed, fighting against the resistance. "Please, you need to calm down." The nurse's voice was steady but firm. "We're doing everything we can. But you can't be in here right now." He looked past her. Emily's eyes were shut, her small chest rising and falling rapidly. A tidal wave of helplessness washed over Jim, knocking the breath from his lungs. He couldn't just stand there. This wasn't going to be the end. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all he could feel was the crushing weight of despair. Then, a figure loomed in the doorway. It was Detective Lisa Stone, an ally and friend, her expression tight. "Jim." She rushed in, bringing a sense of urgency with her. "I just got word we need to discuss what happened to Emily. It might not have been an accident." Panic surged through Jim's veins. "What do you mean? What happened?" Lisa hesitated, her eyes darting toward the treatment area. "I can't explain everything now, but there were witnesses. They said they saw something. Someone." Tension crackled in the air as the words hung heavily between them. Jim's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the past few hours. "Someone? What are you saying?" Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from down the hall, a shattering sound that resonated with fury and chaos. Jim's heart raced as a commotion erupted, loud voices and urgent shouts bouncing off the sterile walls. "Stay here!" Lisa barked, but it was too late. The sense of impending dread propelled him forward. He bolted down the corridor, adrenaline pumping as he raced toward the sound. A line of doctors surged past, faces filled with alarm. The storm was rising, and he could feel it. What had they just stumbled into? Jim's mind spiraled in sync with the chaos, questions gnawing at him. All he wanted was to be at his daughter's side, but now he was thrust into an unknown danger. He forced himself to think through the panic. The answers lay somewhere ahead, and he was determined to reach them. The footsteps grew louder, closing the distance, and he would face whatever lay ahead. For Emily, he'd brave any storm. Steeling himself, he pushed forward. What danger was lurking in the halls of the hospital? Could he save Emily before it was too late? Jim sprinted down the corridor, his breaths coming in quick gasps. He felt the concrete walls close in as the intensity of the atmosphere gripped him. Fear transformed into raw determination, the kind that sent adrenaline surging through his veins. "Get down!" Someone shouted further down the hall, a frantic urgency slicing through the chaos. He caught sight of a group of nurses scrambling, their faces painted with desperation. Jim's heart raced faster. What was happening? A sharp cry echoed off the tiled walls. It was a sound too profound to ignore. Anguish knotted his stomach. He pressed on, pushing past a crash cart, its wheels squealing against the floor, astonished by the pandemonium unfurling like a nightmare concrete film. Then he rounded the corner, and the chaos condensed into a huddle of medical staff at an emergency room door. Inside, he glimpsed another bed, flashes of lights reflecting off sterile metal tools, and voices raised in urgent commands. The scene pulled him in. Something was terribly wrong, and he was on the outside, helpless. "Jim!" Lisa's voice broke through, her silhouette cutting through the chaos, searching for him. "You can't be in here. We need to control the situation." He shook his head fiercely, feeling the strain of being kept away. "I need to know what is happening. I can help. Not like this." She grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "We're looking for a suspect. Someone might be targeting patients. That's why we're evacuating." A creeping dread clawed at him. What do you mean, targeting? You mean Emily? Her silence was a verbal blow, each beat of his heart echoing in the pit of his stomach. He opened his mouth to shout, but a sharp explosion of panic erupted from within the room. A gurney, loaded with supplies, was overturned, sending machines careening across the floor with a scrapping noise that made his teeth clench. Get back! The voice of a paramedic barked as a figure dashed past them. A mask obscured their face, but the wild eyes revealed desperation that mirrored Jim's own. He tore himself free from Lisa's grip and lunged forward, desperation mounting. Was that a tunnel into more chaos he was racing towards? The hallway dimmed, flashing lights deepening the shadows. Every step felt like an echo pulling him deeper into a trap. Suddenly, a heavy crash resonated, and the overhead lights flickered violently. In that instant, the room fell eerily silent, as if the world had taken a breath and held it. Voices faded. All that remained was the thrumming of his own heart. Then heavy footsteps thundered against the floor, heading away from the chaos, moving toward what? The exit. He hesitated, torn between following the unknown or racing toward the unfolding nightmare behind the emergency room door. Saving Emily was paramount, but were they heading toward a larger danger just beyond that threshold? Then a voice pierced through the weighty silence. Jim. Lisa called again, but it sounded miles away. The world lit up with flashes of blue and red, the distant wails of sirens growing louder. He made a decision. He wouldn't let the chaos swallow him. A surge of hope and fear mingled within him as he charged after the figure, determined to uncover the truth. What did they know? Who were they? As Jim's footfalls echoed down the corridor, he felt an unexpected thrill course through him, driving him forward. The answer lay just beyond his reach. Moments later, he rounded another corner and froze at the scene before him. A doorway gaped open, leading to a stairwell dimly lit. Someone was waiting there, cloaked in shadows, exchanging something with the figure that had just dashed by. He could only catch a whisper, chilling as ice. They're onto us. We need to move now. What dark underbelly of the hospital was he about to dive into? Jim took a breath to steady himself, realizing the clock was ticking. He had to unlock this mystery for Emily. But was he racing into a trap, or was this his one chance to save her? He hesitated at the threshold, a mix of dread and determination coursing through him. The murmur from the shadows echoed in his mind, the warning that time was slipping away. Was Emily truly in danger, or was there something far worse lurking in the dark? Jim! A whisper jerked him out of his thoughts. It was Lisa, her eyes wide with panic, scanning the space around them. Get back! You can't follow them. Ignoring her, he stepped closer, straining to hear more. Was that the sound of hurried breathing? A metallic clink reached his ears. They were passing something. Something essential. His heart raced, each beat thudding harder than the last. The world around him felt surreal, twisting into shadows and echoes. With a firm grip on the banister, he leaned in, his instincts flaring. In this moment, every fiber of his being urged him to act, to uncover the truth hidden behind the veil of secrecy. Lisa's voice sliced through the air again, more desperate now. Jim! Please, don't do this. But he couldn't. Emotions surged within him, mingling anger with determination. He took a breath, steeling himself. If this was a trap, he would walk straight into it. He wasn't going to let fear dictate his actions. Not anymore. With one hand firmly exploring the railing, he urged himself forward, slipping into the stairwell. The dim light cast eerie shadows, making every step feel heavier. There was a faint rustling of fabric and whispering voices echoing from below. As he moved further down the staircase, he caught glimpses of figures slipping through doorways and huddled in corners. A loose paper fluttered to the ground, revealing itself as a hospital identification badge. Dr. Mendez, chief surgeon. Confusion flashed in his mind. Why was the chief surgeon wrapped up in this chaos? He rounded a corner, keeping low, trying not to nail himself to the wall and remain unseen. The air felt thick, heavy with secrets and tension. Each footstep made his pulse dance, and he could swear he felt someone watching him. "What's the plan now?" Another voice hissed, tinged with frustration. "We can't keep this under wraps forever. The police will find out. We have to take care of it one way or another." Jim froze, breath catching in his throat. He had to know more, but dread wrapped tighter around him. What the hell is going on here? He thought, heart pounding as he leaned closer. A sudden clatter erupted down the hall, the sound of scrambling feet mixed with the harsh clang of a metal door being kicked open. Panic surged, and before Jim could react, the forms darted down the corridor. "Go! Go! They're coming!" One shouted, urgency rushing through every syllable. Adrenaline flooded Jim's system again. This was it. The urgency he felt crackling in the air surrounded him now. He had to follow them before they vanished completely. "Jim!" Lisa's voice called from near the top of the stairs, panic and worry flashing like a warning sign. "Where are you?" But he was past the point of turning back. He couldn't let her fears anchor him. With renewed energy, he sprinted down the corridor, every nerve alive with the thrill of discovery. As he turned the corner, he was met by a stark scene. There, in front of him, a door swung wide open, revealing an isolated examination room. A fleeting glance inside chilled him to the core. Blood. And a figure, half hidden, stepping out to face him. "What have you done?" Jim's voice trembled as his gut tightened. We didn't have a choice," the figure stammered, face barely illuminated. "You need to leave, now." But as he opened his mouth to respond, another sound erupted behind him. The heavy thud of boots, a squad of officers charging down the corridor, and Jim felt time freeze. The walls narrowed, and he was caught between two dangers. What awaited him in the shadows ahead? Would he uncover the truth about Emily's peril, or had he wandered into a trap far worse than he imagined? The urgency crashed over him like a wave. Jim's instinct kicked in, and he darted sideways into the examination room, the figure right behind him. The door creaked shut, blocking out the chaos behind. His heart thundered against his ribcage, each breath quick and shallow. "Jim," the figure whispered, eyes wide, desperate. "You don't understand. It's not safe here. They will find you." "Find me?" Jim echoed, confusion mixing with fear. "Who are they? And what happened in here?" He gestured vaguely at the bloody tools scattered on a nearby table, the stark reality slashing through his mind. "Dr. Mendez, he's involved in something terrible," the figure stammered, glancing nervously at the door. "You need to leave before it's too late." "Too late for what?" Jim pressed, feeling the weight of dread settle over him. "Is this connected to Emily? Where is she?" The figure's face paled further. "You don't want to know." "I wish I didn't. But you're mixed up in this now, there's no turning back." Jim clenched his jaw, frustration boiling inside. "You can't just say that and expect me to walk away. I need answers." The figure hesitated, biting their lip, a decision etched on their face. "I'm risking everything by speaking to you. But if they find out I've told you, we're all screwed." Their voice cracked, fear bubbling just beneath the surface. "They'll come here. Others are on their way." The urgency in their tone matched the pounding of Jim's heart. "You have to trust me. Follow me. We have to get out before they trap us here." Before Jim could respond, the noise outside intensified, the sounds of shouting and rapid movement echoed through the corridor. The officers were closer now. "Now!" the figure hissed, yanking open a door at the far side of the room. "This leads to the old service tunnel. It's our only chance." "Why should I trust you?" Jim demanded, struggling with the choice laid before him. "Because I know who they are. I heard them talking, planning. They're not just doctors, there's something deeper, something illegal. You can save Emily. But you need to choose right now. The weight of the decision crushed down on him. He could hear the officers gathering just outside, their voices mingling with the clatter of equipment. Every instinct screamed for him to turn back, yet the thought of Emily's vulnerable state propelled him forward. Without another thought, he plunged into the tunnel, darkness swallowing him whole. Behind him, the frantic scuffle and shouting progressed, blending into an echo of urgency. As he stumbled into the tight space, the cold, musty air hit him hard, but he pushed through, heart racing. The walls felt slick, almost alive, and he followed the figure in the faint light ahead, a flickering bulb swinging in the distance. "What are we walking into?" Jim asked, straining to keep up. "Danger. But it's the only way to find out the truth," the figure responded, glancing back with an intensity that ignited Jim's own fire. "And you need to decide what you're willing to risk." Each turn through the damp labyrinth twisted his stomach more. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever. Just when he thought it would never end, they reached an intersection, and the figure halted abruptly. "Wait here. I have to check if it's clear." As they peeked around the corner, heavy footsteps echoed in the tunnel, followed by muffled voices. Jim felt the air drain from his lungs. Could this really be it? He thought, panic tightening its grip. What if they catch us? What if Emily? But before he could finish that thought, a shadow passed overhead. Silence engulfed the corridor, and Jim's heart pounded in his ears. Suddenly, the figure turned back to him, eyes wide. "Jim! They're coming this way. Are you ready to fight for your life?" With uncertainty tightening his stomach, he opened his mouth to respond, and the ground shook beneath him, sending waves of uncertainty through his resolve. What exactly awaited them in those shadows? And how far was he willing to go to save Emily? The tremor subsided, leaving behind a heavy silence that felt suffocating. Jim's mind raced. Was it fear, some unseen danger lurking ahead, or simply the weight of the moment? The figure's expression hardened, its urgency sinking in. "Listen carefully," the figure whispered, gripping Jim's arm, "we have to move. Fast." With a nod, they slipped into the shadows, edging around the corner into an even darker part of the tunnel. Every echo amplified the suspense, the footfalls from behind reminding Jim that they were not alone. "Just stay close. Don't make a sound," the figure murmured, glancing back once more. Their breath seemed ragged, reflecting the tension in the air. As they crept onward, the dim bulb flickered overhead. Jim's heart raced, thoughts of Emily drowning out everything else. "How do you know all this?" he finally dared to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. "I told you I overheard things. They're using patients, Jim. They're conducting experiments under the guise of treatments." The words tumbled out, weighted with gravity. "I thought it was a conspiracy theory until I saw." A loud crash interrupted them, breaking the fragile silence. The sound reverberated through the corridor, and Jim froze, adrenaline spiking. The figure's eyes widened, and they darted down another passageway, urging him to follow. "Go. We have to keep moving." He didn't question it, he took off after them. They turned sharply down a narrow corridor that felt constricting. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, growing heavier with each hurried step. "Where are we going?" he gasped, desperation creeping into his voice. "The service exit is this way. There's a way to the surface from here. If we can reach it." The figure trailed off, the hint of hope flickering weakly in their tone. They skidded to a stop at another intersection, unsure which way to turn. The muffled voices behind them grew louder, a cacophony of authority and intent that sent a chill through Jim's bones. "They're right behind us," Jim whispered, panic gripping him as images of being captured and losing Emily flashed through his mind. "Come on, we can't stay here." The figure turned abruptly, choosing the left path. "Trust me." Jim swallowed hard. "I don't even know your name." "Jenna," she shot back, her face set with determination. As they sprinted down the passage, it seemed to stretch forever, twisting and curving in maddening ways. Sweat dripped down Jim's back, mingling with the increasing dread that threatened to swallow him whole. suddenly, a flash of light caught their eyes from the end of the tunnel, a door, slightly ajar. They approached cautiously, pausing to hear the voices grow ever closer. "Let us go," Jenna urged, pushing the door open slowly. The sight beyond it was both a relief and a horror. The hallway outside was lined with ominous medical equipment, flickering fluorescent lights casting sickly shadows. But it was a way out. "On three, we run." Jim's pulse roared in his ears. 1, 2, 3. They bolted through the doorway, the sound of their footsteps echoing like gunfire behind them. But just as they reached the end of the hallway, a figure stepped out from the shadows, blocking their path. A familiar face, Dr. Mendez. His gaze was cold, calculating, and Jim felt his heart drop into his stomach. "Running away, are we?" Dr. Mendez said, a chilling smile creeping across his lips. "You really should have listened to my warnings." Panic exploded in Jim's chest. There was nowhere to go. "What are you going to do?" Jenna demanded, stepping protectively in front of Jim. "Why don't I show you?" The doctor's voice dripped with malice, with fear coursing through him. Jim glanced over at Jenna, their eyes locking in a moment of shared terror. He had no idea what was coming next, but the stakes were rising, and with them the question that now haunted his every thought: could they escape, or was this the end? Dr. Mendez stepped closer, a predator closing in on its prey. The fluorescent lights flickered again, casting grotesque shadows on his face. Jim felt the icy grip of dread clenching his throat. Jenna's stance was fierce, but Jim could see her hands trembling. "Let her go," Jenna demanded, bravely stepping forward. Jim wanted to pull her back, tell her it was too dangerous, but the words caught in his throat. Mendez laughed softly, the sound chilling in the quiet. "And why would I do that? You're both too curious for your own good." He leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. "Curiosity has consequences." Jenna shifted, readying herself, but panic surged through Jim. "Jenna, no!" he shouted, feeling the threat of physical confrontation in the air. They were trapped between the doctor and the hallway, led like lambs to slaughter. "Ah, desperation," Mendez mused, tilting his head as if he were studying an interesting specimen. "It suits you, Jim. But I assure you, this could end much better if you cooperate." "Cooperate? With what? Experimenting on innocent people?" Jenna's voice cracked, but she stood firm, visibly fearful yet unwilling to back down. Jim's mind raced. The way Mendez had spoken, there was truth wrapped in his menace. He had seen flashes of the operation, heard whispers in the halls about experiments. But he had never considered the implications till now. Enough of this. Mendez surged forward, pushing Jenna aside. Jim's heart stopped, every instinct screamed to act. Without thinking, he shoved past Jenna, using his body to shield her. Mendez stumbled slightly, surprised by the push. "You shouldn't have done that," he sneered, regaining his composure. "You're making this harder for everyone involved." But Jim could see Jenna falter, fear creeping back into her wide eyes. He had to think fast. They couldn't fight their way through Mendez without a plan. "That's it. You want to play?" Jim shouted, casting a glance to the left where the corridor continued, dark and inviting. "Let us play a game, Doc." He took a step back, then lunged toward the empty hall, grabbing Jenna's arm. "Jim!" she gasped, surprised by his sudden recklessness. Ignoring her protests, he sprinted down the corridor, pulling her with him. Behind them, Mendez shouted, the sound of his voice sending adrenaline surging through Jim's veins. They could hear the pounding of footsteps echoing behind them, closing in. "Where are we going?" Jenna panted, her eyes darting around, searching for an escape route. "I don't know." Jim replied, desperation tinging his voice. The shadows enveloped them as they raced down the hall, every heartbeat telling him they were not far ahead of Mendez, but suddenly, the ground beneath Jim's feet quaked again, a tremor shaking the very walls. He stumbled, losing his balance. Jenna grabbed him, and they both fell against the cold wall. The flickering lights above them buzzed and flickered erratically, blinding him temporarily. Up ahead! Jenna shouted, pointing to something in the dim light. A door marked emergency exit glowed faintly. They scrambled to their feet, Jim's lungs burning. We have to reach it. Jenna nodded, her expression resolute. They lunged forward, pushing past the wave of fear washing over him, desperate to escape the terror behind them, but as they neared the door, a series of rapid footsteps approached from the opposite direction. They were trapped again, only moments away from potential apprehension or worse. No. We can't be caught now. Jim shouted as they skidded to a halt, eyes darting for any last chance of escape, what awaited them on the other side of the door, and how far Dr. Mendez's reach extended, now loomed heavy in the air. Jim, we have to choose. Jenna's voice pierced through his rising panic. Now. Just then, Jim's heart sank as he turned back to see Mendez's figure emerging, his smile insidiously back on his face. Ah, there you are, my little lab rat's panic renewed, Jim grabbed Jenna's hand. The weight of their fate pressed down as he pushed against the door, ready to confront whatever lay beyond, but the question hung heavy. In the air, would this lead to freedom or to even greater peril? As Jim and Jenna surged toward the emergency exit, the clattering of footsteps echoed ominously behind them. Suddenly, the door loomed larger, yet its handle felt icy under Jim's trembling fingers. Time was a beast, gnashing its teeth with every heartbeat, and every second counted. Get ready, he shouted at Jenna, who was breathing heavily, her eyes wide and fearful. He could feel the grip of panic rising in his chest, threatening to choke him if he let it. Jim twisted the handle, praying it wasn't locked. With a creak that pierced the air, the door swung open into a dark stairwell. Let us go. He urged, and they plunged into the darkness, the frantic sound of their feet pounding against the concrete steps reverberating through the silence. Mendez's voice, still just behind them, seemed to growl with amusement. You think you can escape so easily? The taunt was all the more chilling, filled with a confidence that hinted he had a plan, a way to corner them no matter where they went. At the bottom of the stairs, Jim pushed through another door, emerging into what looked like a storage area cluttered with old medical equipment and boxes strewn about. The air was thick with mildew and the sharp tang of antiseptic lingered, deepening his unease. Their surroundings felt like a graveyard of abandoned hope. Jim, this way. Jenna pointed toward a narrowing corridor that branched off to the right. Behind them, the echo of Mendez's footsteps resounded, louder and closer. It fueled Jim with a fresh wave of desperation. He took her hand, and they darted down the narrow corridor, every whispered breath filled with dread. The space was cramped, lined with rusted pipes that shushed against one another and flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed, illuminating the shadows that danced along the walls like specters. As they hurried onward, Jim's heart raced, a frantic percussion that echoed his fear. They came to a heavy door that looked more secure than the others. Jim braced his shoulder against it, pushing hard. The door yielded slowly, revealing a dimly lit room that felt oddly inviting amidst the chaos. Inside, the room was filled with an array of strange equipment, lights, monitors, what looked like surgical tools. This must have been one of Mendez's workspaces. A chill invaded Jim's spine. Were they stepping into the lioness den? Jim, what if he finds us in here? Jenna's voice wavered, soft but tinged with terror. Then we'll have to fight. The words came out more bravely than he felt. He scanned the room, desperate for anything that could be used as a weapon or a means of escape. But all he saw were instruments of pain, machines that hummed with a malevolent life of their own. Then, they heard it, the door creaked open behind them. Jim's breath caught, trapped in his throat as he turned, adrenaline drowning out all other thoughts. Mendez stepped into the room, his predatory gaze locking onto them. The cruel smile on his face widened as if relishing the moment. Welcome to my laboratory, he said, the mocking tone slicing through the silence. The dark confidence emanating from him was suffocating. Jim felt the heat of Jenna's fear beside him, a palpable weight that anchored him to the moment. He had to act. They needed a plan, and fast. "Jim, what do we do now?" Jenna whispered, but her voice was barely a breath above the hum of the machines. "Fight or flight, Jenna." "We're not dying here," he replied, the resolve hardening in his voice. He boldly stepped forward, adrenaline fueling him as he faced their hunter. "You think you can control us? We're not just subjects for your games." Mendez paused, a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. Ah, the courage of the naive. It's almost admirable. Jim felt a surge of hope mixed with dread. If Mendez found courage amusing, could that be their way out? Courage? Jim echoed, a plan slowly forming as he watched Mendez, mischief dancing in the depths of the doctor's gaze. Isn't that just a fancy word for recklessness? The doctor's expression sharpened, curiosity peaking. "You've got my attention, Jim. But what do you truly hope to achieve here?" In that moment, a dangerous game had begun. Jim's mind raced, piecing together fragments of a plan their escape depended on it. Suddenly, the glint of hope flickered dimly. Is freedom worth the risks? He asked himself. Mendez's interest deepened like a predator sensing prey caught in a trap. "Let us see just how far you're willing to go." They stood on a precipice, teetering between light and darkness, embarking on a dangerous game where the stakes were their very lives. As the moment stretched on, Jim wondered how much further he could push Mendez. What secret lay beyond that door? And, deep down, he feared it was a question that could turn on him in an instant. The room was thick with tension, every eye on Mendez. Jim's heart pounded in rhythm with a ticking clock that only he could hear. There was something unsettlingly theatrical about Mendez's demeanor, like a villain in a dark play relishing his audience's fears. Jim stepped forward, steadying his breath, forcing himself to appear more confident than he felt. "You like to toy with lives, don't you? But what happens when the toys break?" Mendez's smile faltered for just an instant, but then he chuckled softly, a sound laced with menace. "Ah, Jim. Such bravado. You truly think you have the upper hand? You're merely pawns, and pawns are expendable." Jenna gripped Jim's arm, the warmth of her hand a stark contrast to the cold dread settling over him. "We need to find a way out, Jim," she urged, her voice trembling with urgency. "Not yet," he whispered, his eyes darting around. His instincts screamed for him to keep Mendez engaged. "You enjoy your little games. What if we played a new one? A chance for us to prove how strong we truly are." The doctor paused, brows raising just enough to suggest a flicker of interest. "What are you suggesting?" "We'll take one life to save another," Jim declared, knowing full well how dangerous such a proposal was. "Let us start with you. What's your end game, Mendez? Are you really as untouchable as you think?" Jenna gasped. "Jim, no." Mendez simply arched an eyebrow, leaning back slightly, intrigued. "Bold strategy but foolish. What will happen if you fail? Who do you think will win this game of survival?" "I've got nothing left to lose," Jim replied, grounding himself in that truth. The gravity of his words hung in the air like an uninvited specter. Mendez laughed again, but there was something sharper underneath, a glint of malevolence in his eyes. "I like your spirit, Jim. But let me remind you, I'm not the one you should be afraid of." The doors behind Mendez creaked ominously, a nightmare rattling to life. The rasping sound was a dagger of dread plunging into Jim's gut. Something shifted in the air, thickening as uncertainty wrapped around them like a suffocating fog. Mendez shifted, morphing from a mere man into something far darker, a black hole of intent. "What if I told you there's still a way to win?" he taunted, taking a step closer. "I'm not completely heartless." Jim clenched his fists, vulnerable yet resolute. "Cut the games, Mendez. What's your plan? What do you really want?" "Oh, you'll see," he promised, his smile widening into a sinister grin. "But first, I need a demonstration of your commitment." Before Jim could comprehend the implications, the lights flickered violently, and a loud hiss filled the room, causing him to jump back. The monitors began to sputter, flashes of light revealing shadows of grotesque images. The surgical tools on the nearby table gleamed under the violent strobe, each one a potential instrument of terror. "What are you doing?" Jenna shrieked, eyes wide with panic. "The game has just begun, my dear." Mendez purred, his eyes glinting with twisted delight. "Let us see how far you're willing to go when the stakes are excruciatingly real." As chaos erupted, Jim felt the ground shift beneath him. They were not just trapped in a room, they were ensnared in a web of psychological warfare, and Mendez was the spider with a taste for fear. "Stay close," Jim shouted, gripping Jenna's hand as they stumbled backward, searching for a way to turn the tide. But the walls felt like they were closing in, the very air thick with dread and the promise of pain. Jim's mind raced, subconscious thoughts racing ahead of him. Would this be Mendez's final act? What horrors could he unleash? As he gasped for breath, the monitors began showcasing snapshots of fear wrought on those before them, each image unfolding a pivotal moment where hope withered under Mendez's control. The last image flashed, an explosion of chaos as the door behind them slammed shut. All hope began to wither, replaced by a suffocating tension that clawed at Jim's throat. "Let us see how brave you truly are," Mendez whispered, the sound curling around them like smoke. In that moment, darkness pressed in, and it became clear, the true challenge lay ahead, veiled in shadows and uncertainty. Would Jim and Jenna find a way to escape this nightmare, or would they become just another chapter in Mendez's twisted saga? The stakes had never been higher, and every heartbeat felt like ticking doom. As Jim stared into the abyss of Mendez's malicious grin, a flicker of rebellion ignited within him. They had to forge a path, or die trying. But could they turn the game back on its master? Were they truly ready to confront the monstrous methods Mendez employed? Suddenly, the looming darkness felt heavier than ever, and Jim knew their fight was only just beginning. The chaos of the hospital felt like a distant memory as the smoke-filled air of the hidden corridor pressed in on Jim and Jenna. They stayed huddled, the echoes of Mendez's twisted laughter ringing in their ears as realization settled heavy among them. Facing Mendez was terrifying, but they were not going to go down without a fight. Jenna breathed, her voice a whisper, a mix of fear and determination. "We need to turn this against him." Jim locked eyes with her, the gravity of their situation weighing heavily. "You're right. If we're going to get out of this, we need a plan." They were cornered now, but fear couldn't hold them back. It ignited a fire between them. Suddenly, the lights flickered and buzzed, the very air around them felt charged. "We can't let him control the game," Jim murmured, glancing back toward the door. "We need to distract him, buy us time." Jenna nodded, her mind racing. "There's an emergency medical cart by the door, we can use the supplies as a diversion." "Great idea." Jim felt a surge of hope. They had never planned to be heroes, but this situation forced them to step up. "I'll grab the cart and create a loud distraction. You get ready to run." With a deep breath, Jim slowly edged toward the door, glancing back at Jenna one last time. On 3, 1, 2 his resolve curled tightly in his gut. With a swift push, he swung the door open, startling Mendez. "Look out!" he shouted, lunging for the medical cart just as Mendez's eyes widened in surprise. "Fool!" Mendez snarled just as Jim crashed the cart into the wall, sending syringes and supplies flying like deadly confetti. The sound was deafening, the jarring bang echoed, and a whirlwind of materials erupted into the air. "Now!" Jim yelled, grabbing Jenna's hand. They sprinted down the corridor, feet pounding against the floor, cutting through smoke and uncertainty. Behind them, Mendez roared in fury. "You won't escape that easily." But adrenaline fueled them. They hurtled down darkened hallways, pushing themselves harder than ever, the distant wail of sirens growing louder. "We need to find a way to get to the roof," Jim shouted, their flight lighting a fire within. "We might be able to signal for help from up there." They hurtled into a stairwell, the cold metal echoing their urgent footsteps. Each step felt like a heartbeat survived, leading them towards a potential escape. Jenna shot a look back, worry etching her face. What if he follows us? What if they're waiting for us? They won't expect us to go up, Jim assured, breathing heavily as they reached the final few flights. We'll make it if we keep moving. For Emily. With renewed determination, they burst into another hallway that opened onto the rooftop. The cold night air hit them like a wave of relief, and they paused, catching their breath. But it wasn't over yet. Shadows shifted behind them as Mendez's voice echoed through the stairwell. You think you can hide from me? This ends now. Jim! Jenna screamed, panic slicing through her words. We have to signal. Jim's eyes darted around desperately. The rooftop was empty but for some metal framework and an old utility box. There. He pointed to the bulky box. There might be a radio or something. Let us check. They rushed toward it, hands fumbling against the rusted metal. The world had narrowed down to surreal urgency, and Jim felt the heat of adrenaline surge through him as Jenna tried to pry open the box. Suddenly, the door to the stairwell creaked, then slammed open. Mendez! Jim shouted as the doctor appeared, eyes wild, face a mask of rage. You'll regret this. In that instant, Jenna yanked open the utility box, revealing a set of old radio equipment. It's working. Help is coming. Not if I can help it. Mendez lunged at them, but Jim dove, using the metal utility box as a shield. Go. Get to the radio. He shouted, putting himself in front. The weight of the confrontation pressed heavily on him, yet he wouldn't let fear take charge. They had come too far. Jenna's fingers danced over the buttons, sending a frantic call for help into the night. Please, someone, here. Us. She cried, voice shaking, and then, despair turned to hope as a voice crackled through the radio. This is Unit 14. We're tracking your location, hold tight. Mendez. We have to go. Jim gritted his teeth, diving backward as Mendez tried to close the distance. No. You're not leaving without consequences. Jenna reached back, pulling Jim towards the staircase. He's coming. With renewed urgency, they ran toward the edge of the roof. Jump! Jim yelled as they reached the ledge, the dark streets below feeling like salvation. The distant sounds of sirens began to mix with the chaos around them, Mendez charging just behind. You can't run from me. He thundered, but Jim turned, facing the doctor one last time. You're wrong. Jim shouted, adrenaline pumping. This is our life, not yours. Without another thought, he seized Jenna's hand, taking a leap of faith through the darkness. The world contracted as they fell, a swirling moment of fear. But hope glimmered like a beacon through the fear. The ground rushed to meet them just as the sirens blared louder. It was now or never. Freedom was within reach. They landed hard, rolling to break the fall. Everything blurred for a moment, but as they scrambled onto their feet, the sight of flashing lights illuminated the shadows. The police had arrived. Mendez! Jim shouted, the adrenaline still driving him. He's up there, he's not finished yet. Jenna grabbed his arm, wide-eyed as officers rushed by. We did it, Jim. We're okay. And in that moment, a flood of relief washed over him. They had faced the darkness together, and now, light pierced through. As they stood, watching the officers chase after the threats, Jim felt a bond strengthen between them, a promise of loyalty, a will to fight against the dark. We'll find Emily, he whispered, and Jenna nodded, hope rekindled between them. In the shadows of that night, beneath the stars that shone like promises of tomorrow, they knew they could endure anything, and somewhere below, hospital alarms rang out, a haunting reminder of their battle against a monster. But this time, Jim felt a warmth wrap around them. Their fight for Emily had only just begun, and together, they would make sure light triumphed over darkness, now more than ever, they were ready for whatever came next. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of our next exclusive stories unfolding. Smash that like button to help boost the algorithm and keep us thriving. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this amazing journey. Show your support, let us grow this community together.